When a young athlete told Dwayne Johnson that an injury had destroyed his future, something powerful happened. Jimmy Fallon watched as The Rock transformed personal devastation into a masterclass on reinvention. It was a vibrant Thursday evening at Studio 6B in Rockefeller Center, where The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon was pulsing with that electric energy that made millions of viewers feel like they were witnessing something extraordinary. The studio was bathed in warm, golden light that created Jimmy's signature welcoming atmosphere, with nearly 200 audience members filling every seat, their excitement palpable in the air. The iconic set gleamed under the professional lighting, every detail perfectly crafted to create that feeling of intimacy despite the massive scale of the production. Behind his iconic curved wooden desk, Jimmy sat with his infectious smile, while the Roots provided their seamless musical backdrop that somehow made every conversation feel both intimate and epic. Across from him, occupying the guest chair that had welcomed legends from every corner of entertainment, sat Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. At 52, he commanded the space with a presence that was somehow both overwhelming and comforting. Tonight, he wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit that managed to contain his massive 6'5" frame while still suggesting the incredible power beneath the fabric. His smile was warm and genuine, and there was something about the way he carried himself that spoke of a man who had learned to transform every challenge into an opportunity, every setback into a setup for a comeback. The interview had been flowing with that easy rhythm that comes when two people genuinely enjoy each other's company. They'd covered The Rock's latest blockbuster films, his business ventures with Seven Bucks Productions, and his incredible journey from WWE superstar to becoming one of Hollywood's most bankable actors. Jimmy had been particularly interested in The Rock's work ethic and his philosophy of turning obstacles into opportunities. "You're always talking about embrace the grind and turn your setbacks into comebacks," Jimmy said, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. That level of resilience and positivity, where does that come from? Because, let's be honest, it can't have always been easy. The Rock's expression became more thoughtful, his trademark smile softening into something more reflective. "You know, Jimmy, I think when you experience real failure, and I mean the kind that stops you in your tracks and forces you to question everything about who you thought you were, you have two choices. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you." "That sounds like you're speaking from experience," Jimmy observed, his host instinct sensing there was deeper territory to explore here. "I am..." The Rock nodded, his voice taking on a weight that suggested he was drawing from profound personal wells. "I had a very specific plan for my life when I was in college. I was going to play in the NFL. That was it. That was my identity, my future, my everything. And when that got taken away..." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Well, let's just say I learned what rock bottom felt like." The audience was hanging on every word, sensing that they were witnessing something more significant than typical late-night banter. There was an authenticity in The Rock's tone that transcended his usual motivational persona. "You're talking about your football career at the University of Miami," Jimmy said gently. "That's right. I was on the 1991 national championship team, but I was mostly riding the bench. I thought my senior year would be my time to shine, my chance to prove I belonged in the NFL. But then..." The Rock's voice trailed off, and for a moment, the global superstar looked like he was transported back to that devastating moment decades ago. That's when the voice from the audience cut through the conversation, like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. "Mr. Johnson?" The voice was young, strained, carrying the weight of fresh heartbreak. Both Jimmy and The Rock turned toward the source, their experienced instincts immediately recognizing the gravity in that simple address. "I'm sorry to interrupt," the voice continued, gaining strength with determination. "But I have to ask you something. Something I've been carrying for months." The cameras found him, a young man who couldn't have been more than 20, wearing a University of Michigan hoodie that looked like it had been his armor through countless tough days, and sitting with his left leg extended, a walking boot visible beneath his dark jeans. His face held that particular combination of youth and premature wisdom that comes from having adult dreams shattered before you've finished becoming an adult. There was something in his posture, the way he held himself with a mixture of residual athletic confidence and newfound vulnerability, that spoke of someone who was still learning how to exist in a world where his identity had been suddenly and completely redefined. "What's your name, son?" Jimmy asked gently, his professional warmth creating space for whatever needed to be said. "Tyler," the young man replied, his voice steady despite the obvious emotion beneath it. "Tyler Matthews? I'm a junior at University of Michigan. Or I was." The Rock was studying Tyler intently, something in the young man's posture and the visible injury clearly resonating with him in ways that went beyond simple audience interaction. "What happened, Tyler?" The Rock asked softly, his voice stripped of any celebrity polish, speaking athlete to athlete. Tyler took a deep breath, gathering courage for words that clearly hurt to say. "I was the starting quarterback for Michigan, had scholarship offers from multiple schools, NFL scouts were watching me. 3 months ago, I tore my ACL, damaged my rotator cuff, and fractured my throwing shoulder, all in the same play. The doctors say I'll never play at a competitive level again." The studio fell completely silent. This wasn't just an audience question anymore. This was one dreamer reaching across the void to another, asking for a roadmap through territory that few people understood unless they had walked it themselves. 3 months? The Rock repeated quietly, understanding immediately flooding his features. "So, you're still in that space where it feels like your entire future just got erased." Tyler nodded, tears starting to form in his eyes. "Everyone keeps telling me it's not the end of the world, that there are other things I can do. But football wasn't just what I did. It was who I was. I don't know how to be anything else." "How did you do it? How did you not just give up?" The Rock stood up slowly from his chair, and the movement seemed to happen with deliberate purpose. He didn't ask permission from Jimmy or glance at the producers. He simply walked around the desk, past the cameras, and into the audience, drawn by an invisible thread that connected him to this young man who was living through the exact nightmare that had once defined his own darkest moment. Behind him, Jimmy quietly stepped back, understanding instinctively that this moment belonged to something larger than entertainment, larger than late-night television, larger than anything that could be scripted. The Rock reached Tyler's row, and audience members naturally shifted to make space, sensing they were witnessing something sacred. He stopped directly in front of Tyler, this global icon looking into the eyes of a young man whose world had just been turned upside down. "Tyler," the Rock said, his voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying clearly through the silent studio. "Can I sit with you for a minute?" Tyler nodded, unable to speak. The Rock carefully lowered his massive frame into the seat next to Tyler, somehow making himself smaller so he could meet this hurting young man exactly where he was. "Tyler, I want to tell you something I've never said publicly before," the Rock began, his voice growing stronger as he shared this piece of his history. "When I got hurt at Miami, when I realized my NFL dreams were over, I didn't handle it well. I went into what I can only describe as a complete spiral. The audience was completely still, hanging on every word of this revelation that felt simultaneously intimate and universal. I gained weight, I lost focus in school, I questioned everything about myself," the Rock continued. "I remember sitting in my dorm room, looking at all these NFL draft magazines that had my name in them as a potential late-round pick, and realizing that none of it mattered anymore. I felt like a complete failure." Tyler was crying openly now, but they weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition, of finally feeling understood by someone who had walked the exact same path. "But here's what I learned, Tyler, and it took me way too long to understand this," the Rock said, placing a gentle hand on Tyler's shoulder. "That injury didn't end your story. It ended one chapter so a better one could begin. But you have to be willing to turn the page." Tyler looked up at the Rock, his young face streaked with tears, but something like hope beginning to dawn in his eyes. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now," the Rock continued, "but that field was just preparing you for a bigger stage. All those hours you spent studying film, learning strategy, leading your team, those skills don't disappear because you can't throw a football anymore. They just need a new outlet." Behind them, Jimmy was watching with his own eyes bright with emotion, understanding that he was witnessing something extraordinary, the moment when one person's survival became another person's roadmap. "Tyler," the Rock said, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out something small and worn. "I want to give you something. This is a piece of the actual goalpost from the 1991 National Championship game. I've carried it for 30 years as a reminder." He placed the small metal fragment in Tyler's hands. "I want you to have this. Not because I'm done with it, but because I want you to remember that every champion has a moment where they think their story is over. The real champions are the ones who write a new story. Tyler was sobbing now, clutching the metal fragment like a lifeline. But what if I don't know how to do anything else? Tyler whispered. Then you learn, The Rock said simply. You take all that discipline, all that leadership, all that competitive fire that made you a starting quarterback, and you point it towards something new. Business, coaching, broadcasting, anything that lights you up inside. The skills that made you great at football will make you great at whatever comes next. Jimmy approached them then, his own voice thick with emotion. Tyler, you know what? The Rock's absolutely right, and I want to help with that transition. Actually, The Rock said, turning to Jimmy with sudden determination, I want to do something specific. Tyler, have you ever thought about what you might want to do after football? I studied business, Tyler said quietly. Always thought maybe I'd get into sports management or something, but now it's not something, The Rock interrupted with a smile. It's your next chapter. Tyler, I want to offer you an internship with $7 Productions. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because I see something in you that reminds me of myself at your age. Someone who's about to discover they're capable of things they never imagined. The audience erupted in applause, but through it all, Tyler's voice could be heard. Thank you for showing me it's possible. Thank you, The Rock replied, for reminding me why it's important to share these stories. As they embraced, Jimmy stepped forward to address the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Sometimes the most important lessons happen when we stop celebrating our victories and start sharing our defeats. The episode that aired became one of the most powerful Tonight Show segments in the show's history, generating millions of views and countless messages from viewers sharing their own stories of career-ending injuries, unexpected pivots, and second chances. But more than the viral impact, it sparked real-world change, with colleges across the country implementing better support systems for student athletes facing career transitions. 6 months later, Tyler Matthews stood in The Rock's production office in Los Angeles, no longer wearing a walking boot, but carrying himself with a new kind of confidence. He had discovered a passion for entertainment business that burned just as bright as his love for football had. In his pocket, he carried the metal fragment from the goalpost, but he also carried something more valuable. The knowledge that sometimes life's greatest tackles are the ones that force you to run in a completely different direction. And when Tyler spoke at his first $7 Productions company meeting, introducing a new program to support transitioning athletes, the first slide of his presentation showed a simple quote: "Your setback is your setup for a comeback. You just have to be brave enough to redefine what victory looks like." Because sometimes the most powerful thing about losing everything is discovering that you're strong enough to build something even better from the pieces.